Workers' compensation is a law that covers all on-the-job injuries, regardless of who's at fault, even if the injured worker's at fault. But what happens if it's more than just the injured worker's at fault? What if the injury was intentional? What happens then? Hi everyone, this is Morrell from the Colorado law firm Kaplan Morrell. We've been helping injured and disabled workers and their families get the benefits they deserve for work injuries since 1997. If this video helps you, please sure to hit like and subscribe or comment below. We'd love to have you be part of our online community. In this video, I'm going to discuss how workers' compensation deals with intentional injuries. And we'll first talk about what happens in the law when the employee intentionally hurts himself or herself. And in another video, I'm going to talk about what happens if the employer intentionally injures the employee and how the law deals with that. Okay, so the general rule is that intentionally inflicted injuries are not covered under workers' compensation. And there's a statute involved, which is 841-301, which basically says, hey, this covers accidents, and intentionally injured people, that's an intentional injury, isn't an accident. And so we're not going to cover intentionally inflicted injuries. However, as always with the law, there are always some exceptions. So first, courts need to understand there's a difference between being stupid and being intentional. So for example, if an injured worker got injured because of recklessness or gross negligence, etc., that's going to be covered because that's not considered an intentional injury. They may have deserved everything they got. Oops, now you'll learn never to do that again. But a self-inflicted wound is a deliberate intent to cause injury. It's not because of foolish acts. There's one big exception, however, and that's in the tragic case of suicide. And we've seen this a lot. It's really sad. I mean, if you've been practicing workers' compensation for any length of time, you're going to have clients who have committed suicide, and those are heartbreaking cases. And suicide is a big exception to this rule. So workers' compensation deals with suicide differently. Now, if the industrial injury causes a mental condition that in turn causes the suicide, those cases can be covered. So if you have somebody who has a traumatic brain injury, and oftentimes people with traumatic brain injuries suffer mental disturbances, changes in how they act, how they feel, how they deal with others, and it causes pain and hopelessness, and the injured worker commits suicide because of that, then the suicide is covered under workers' compensation, and their family members can get what are called dependent benefits. If the mental stress is due to something that happened at work and it's not because of a physical injury, in other words, you didn't get hit on the head, you didn't have a traumatic brain injury, but something horrific happened at work. Let's say again, you're involved in some sort of shooting, crime at work, etc. It can get tricky because mental stress disorders, you have to prove more than you have to do for a physical case. You have to show, for example, that the thing that happened at work was not part of the normal experience of work. It wasn't something natural or normal in your course and line of work. So again, classic example that I always use are ambulance drivers, right? Ambulance emergency technicians. They are expected to go to some horrific crash scenes where they're going to see people have died, horrific injuries, blood, bones, etc. And those kinds of emotionally disturbing scenes are in the normal course of that job. They're normal. But if you are working in an office and someone comes in and they die in front of you, that's going to be a different experience. It's an outside your usual experience. So a lot of times you have to show that the mental stress which caused the suicide was due to something unusual that happened in your job, not part of your normal work. That's unfortunate because you've really got to show a lot more burden of proof. You've got to show a lot more in order to get that covered under workers' compensation. There's another twist on suicide and emotional distress, and that is from litigation stress. So what's litigation stress? Litigation stress is hopefully what it sounds like, which is whenever you're fighting over benefits, what you're entitled to because of your work injury, that can be really stressful. And sometimes as an attorney, I forget this because this is the job I picked. I picked to be in this stressful litigation fighting environment as my chosen work. But my clients, they didn't. They didn't ask to get injured, and when they got injured, they certainly hoped that they would get the benefits that they deserved without having to hire a lawyer, without having to fight in court. And sometimes that didn't happen. And so often I have my clients feel extraordinary pressure, extraordinary difficulties in dealing with doing answers to interrogatories, going to medical examinations, going to a deposition, having to testify at work. Sometimes they're really frustrated just because their claim was denied or denied in a way that they found to be disrespectful or unfounded, etc. And I have had clients get injured because their cases were denied, because their cases weren't handled properly. And unfortunately, the law has said a suicide due to mental stress from litigation stress is not going to be compensable. Well, hopefully you understand that a lot of times it depends in the law, that there's a general rule and then there can be a lot of exceptions, which means that if you or a member of your family is dealing with a work injury, talk with us, give us a call. You can call us, text us, go to our website, get in touch with us. Our first consultation is completely free. It's confidential. Get to know your options, get to know your rights, and if it's a good match, by all means, we would love to help you. We only charge what's called a contingency fee, which means we only charge if we win, and at that, we only charge 20%. And with that, thank you for spending part of your day with me.